What is everyone? Today we're reacting to Terra Green 1000 ants versus obstacles and 1000 ants versus a natural disaster. So
Avatar Fire and Ash is now streaming on Disney+.
I don't care about.
This world goes much deeper than you imagine.
I've seen videos of ants doing insane. Ants are known for their insane ability.
So let me go to there.
I've seen videos of ants doing insane things to survive. Like in this one,
Okay.
where they built a boat out of their bodies to survive a flood. Or in this one, where they built a dangling bridge out of their body
Okay, this 1000 ants versus obstacles.
to attack a wasp nest. So I was wondering if I put
Wait, can't they just crawl on the roof? Like, isn't their nest like right
my
beside
1000.
it?
I've seen videos of ants doing insane things to survive. Like in this one, where they built a boat out of their bodies to survive a flood. Or in this one, where they built
Look,
a dangling bridge
You
out
can
of
go on the roof and just.
their bodies to attack a wasp nest. So I was wondering if I put my 1000 ants into obstacle courses, will they do similar things to complete them? Or are my ants just not that smart? Well, I just spent hours gathering 1000 ants out my old ant nest, so I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to put these guys up against their first ant obstacle. Obstacle number 1 is this thing. Basically, what we do is put some massive dead insect food at the bottom, and then we fill it with a bunch of sand to turn it into one of those 2D ant nests. Basically, we'll be able to watch the ants dig out all sorts of tunnel systems in here, and if they actually find the insect food I hit at the bottom, then they'll pass the obstacle and move on to the next obstacles that get harder and harder as the video goes on. Alright, let's not waste any time, and well, let's just do this. Wow, that is very satisfying watching 1000 ants all in here. Okay, now of course immediately the ants all just start to try and climb the walls of the top area to try and escape. But surprisingly, many of the ants were already starting to dig down that center 2D part of the nest. Oh my gosh, this is happening so fast. Wait, is there already progress on the side of the tank? Oh, I just put these guys in literally like 45 seconds ago. And they've already dug like half an inch down in. What? Yep, and if you check out this time-lapse footage, you can see just how quickly they were getting work done. They literally work like mini drills to dig these tiny tunnels through the
Oh, forgot to say, shout out to Terra Green.
sand. But in reality, it's a tiring and grueling process where each individual grain of sand has to be picked up from a worker underground, brought all the way up to the surface through this little hole, and then dropped off at this pile of sand over here. Now, while I was recording this, it was actually getting pretty late in the day, so I decided to turn off the lights and came back the next day to see the progress made. And guys, the next day I came back to the ant nest looking like this. Yeah, bro, what? It's been literally like 8 hours. How did these ants build an entire intricate nest? And not only were all these intricate tunnel systems made, but remember those dead insects I placed at the bottom as food? Well, it's safe to say that ants found those too, and it looks like the whole colony had swarmed them and had already started to devour them. And since they got to the insects, that technically means they passed this first obstacle. Congratulations, guys. It happened so fast, I literally didn't even capture that on camera.
That's
But
wild.
this next obstacle the ants are going up against will definitely be caught on camera, because the next obstacle is the tightrope of doom. Yes, you heard that right. And if you're wondering what that is, well, it's this thing. Yup, the ants will have to walk across this extremely narrow tightrope over a pit filled with fire and flames. Oh, I gotta put that out. Oh, yep, put that out. Where are you gonna go out? No, I'm just kidding. That would be crazy. These are literally my pets. I would never do that. But I will be trapping the ants down here if they fall by lining the walls of this pit with this super slippery liquid stuff called fluon. I know you can't really see this stuff since it's invisible, but basically when an ant tries to walk up on here now, it'll just slip off completely. Yeah, this stuff is super slippery. And you guys are about to see why this challenge gets so interesting in a second. But if you look over at the 2D ant nest, you'll actually see I have a little hole here plugged up with some paper towels. And if you also look here, I got some tubing, meaning I can connect this to the obstacle.
All right.
Let's just get this obstacle started. Come on, ants, let's get in here. Immediately after plugging in the tubing, obviously ants noticed and started walking it. I mean, there's 1000 ants. You can't even get away from them for a second. So that's what makes these obstacles fun, because it only took like 10 seconds till our first ant entered the tightrope of doom tank. Now, to pass this obstacle, the ants quite literally just need to get one of these pieces of insect legs back across the tightrope, which I think might be impossible, but let's see how they do. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the ants started off with some pretty lackluster performance because our first ants that made it to this tightrope didn't actually walk onto it. They kind of just walked around it on the corner of this platform where they just ended up just slipping off. Yeah, come on, guys. What are you doing? But we got 1,000 ants, so I was expecting at least one of these ants to eventually step onto this tightrope. But as tons more ants started to walk into this room, yeah, they kind of all just did the same exact thing. And the pit started to get absolutely filled up with
With Walmart's back-to-school must-haves, even their locker can be as big as their vibe.
Walmart? You know it.
get absolutely filled up with tons of ants. Come on, ants, what are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. I think this is actually my fault, and to make them walk across the tightrope, I just gotta fix something. Let me show you how to fix it. Basically, what I did was, first of all, tape 2 extra pieces of string to the tightrope to make it a bit thicker so the ants would feel safer when they walked on it. And also, I rubbed this insect jelly food on the tightrope to make the bridge smell like jelly. And yeah, hopefully this will make them want to walk on it. Now, this worked exactly how I wanted it to, because within the first minute, our first workers actually started to walk onto the tightrope and explored it, just very slowly. But over time, more and more ants started to walk onto it, and it was actually kind of funny, because sometimes the ants would literally just be hanging from each other's legs, because there would just be way too many on the tightrope at the same time. Dang, these ants aren't very good at saving their friends. But it didn't take long for our first brave ant to actually make it to the end of this tightrope. That wasn't even half of the challenge, because now, if you remember, the ants actually got to pick up one of these insect legs and bring them back across the tightrope. And this ant clearly wasn't looking too interested in that, because yeah, he was just completely ignoring them. So I kept waiting until some more ants made it to the side by crossing the tightrope. And surprisingly, one of the ants that made it actually did seem interested in the legs, because he went up to one of them and actually started to bite it. But if you couldn't tell, this leg is kind of way too big for this worker to carry it all by himself. And for some reason, even after tons of ants made it onto this side, none of them came to help this poor worker move the leg. But this worker had a mission. He knew he needed to take a leg back to the colony, so what he did was he went up to one of the smaller insect legs that he could actually carry by himself, and he actually picked it up and started to walk. Yep, yeah, it wasn't super efficient or anything, but theoretically he could pass this obstacle for the entire colony if he played his cards right. And played his cards right, he did, because I'm not joking, he walked straight over to the tightrope, and he might have had an extremely close call where he almost fell off, but somehow he managed to save himself, and then the ant actually started to walk across the tightrope with an insect leg in his mouth. Oh my gosh, guys, this is genuinely so insane. I'm rooting for you, bro. I mean, you got a long way to go. But guys, the ants were doing so awful up to this point. You can see how many fell into the pit of doom. Bro, this dude, he's just an absolute killer. Yup, literally none of the 1,000 ants.
Killer! Oh, sorry. Sorry, he said killer and I thought a thriller.
Decided to help this dude. He was doing this entirely solo, and so he kept on marching, completely ignoring any ants that were in his way. And this dude made it all the way to the end of the tightrope, where he then walked onto the platform to complete the obstacle. Oh my gosh, this ant is insane. Seriously, I gotta name this guy. I think I'm gonna name him Anthony, and we're probably never gonna be able to find Anthony again since all the ants look the same. But seriously, everyone spam some W's in the comments for Anthony. That was so insane. And since these guys beat the obstacle, I'm gonna give them the insect's legs as a prize. Thanks, Anthony. Hopefully you guys enjoy. So I quickly moved all the fallen soldiers back to the 2D ant nest. Well, this colony is now ready for its third obstacle. And oh boy, am I excited for this one. Because guys, these ants are gonna have to break
What type of ants are these?
into a vault. Yeah, like a robbery, basically. Yup, you heard that right, a vault. For this obstacle, I literally built up a DIY bank vault from scratch out of paper that I knew the ants would probably be able to break into. You can see, it's pretty good. Sort of looks like a real vault. And anyways, it's cool because the door actually opens, so I could fill this bank vault with an absolutely insane amount of seeds. Yeah, I put so many seeds in here. Because yeah, apparently seeds are this species of ants' favorite food, so they should absolutely swarm this thing. But I got this hot glue gun so I could seal this vault door shut, because I gotta make this actually a kind of hard obstacle. So let me just go and put some glue on here. Oh yeah, just like that. Alright, the
Doesn't
vault
that
is
hurt?
completely sealed shut with glue now, so let's see if these ants can actually get the seeds out of it. This is going to be very interesting to watch. So yeah, I just put it in, and as you can imagine, the 1,000 ant colony immediately started to climb onto it. Especially when things are put into colonies' nests, they need to investigate it to make sure it's not a threat. And with this, I think they pretty much immediately knew it wasn't a threat, because none of them were biting it or anything. And actually, a lot of them were just using it as an opportunity to climb out of the enclosure. But that's not good. But yeah, the vault right now is pretty sealed shut, and I don't even think the ants knew that there were seeds inside of here. So nothing really eventful happened, to be honest. Okay, this is not exactly going to plan. I'm just gonna take this box and put it in there. Oh, hopefully I didn't crush any ants. Okay, and then let me scoop up all the ants that fell off. So yeah, I got all those fallen soldiers back into the nest, of course. Well, that didn't exactly work so well, but I kind of knew it wasn't gonna work so well, so that's why I came equipped with this stuff. See, basically, it's a cup of water and a big cup of sugar, which I'm gonna pour into the water. Then basically, I can mix the water and sugar around to make sugar water, which ants love the smell and taste of. And using this paintbrush, I actually just want to go and paint our vault with it. And basically, this will make the vault not only taste like sugar, but it will also just make it kind of soggy since it's made out of paper, and it should make it able so the ants can chew through it and stuff and get to the seeds. So yeah, I absolutely just soaked this vault in the sugar water, and without wasting any time, I got this thing in the nest. Alright, ants, let's see how you do this time. And oh boy, were things a lot more interesting this time around, because
We gotta fix it. There's a hole right
away, tons more ants were way more interested. You can see how after the ants would walk onto the vault, they would just completely stand still. That's because they were putting their mouths up to the paper and were just completely licking all the sugar off the paper. Yeah, so not really what I had in mind. I thought this was gonna make them wanna completely chew through the paper, not lick it. But yeah, so many ants got their fair share of the sugar. However, I didn't see a single ant even trying to find or even acknowledge that there were seeds inside of here. Well, that was until this moment. When you see this hole here, well, just out of nowhere, an ant just came up to it and walked into the hole. And yeah, there was just an ant inside of this vault with the absolute jackpot of seeds. I don't know how this hole got here. I guess maybe the sogginess from the sugar water made it droop or something. But wow. That is crazy. Oh my gosh, wait, I think the ants just completed the obstacle. Let me get all the excess ants off this safe real quick. And yeah, once the extra ants had fallen off, I cut open the vault to see if that ant had actually made it inside. And as you can see, he absolutely had made it inside. Oh my gosh, bro, your colony has no clue how much you just clutched up for them. Wait, imagine if this is Anthony, that same ant that beat the obstacle course. That would be insane, but I mean, I don't know if this is the same ant. But anyways, W ant. So yeah, I just went and poured the entire vault's loot pile onto the 2D ant nest, and well, the ants have been rewarded with the absolute motherload of food up to this point. But I've been saving the craziest obstacle for last to really find out how smart my ant colony actually is. And this final one is the floor is lava. Yup, the floor is lava, and thankfully I already have it built right here. This is the final obstacle, and you may be wondering, bruh, Terra Green, where's the lava? Well, the lava is the
Bonnie, there's a package for you. I knew you. Oh, your blues like a mood ring chick.
The final obstacle. And you may be wondering, bruh, Terra Green, where's the lava? Well, the lava is these strips of red on the floor right here. You see, these are actually extremely sticky pieces of tape. And
So there's a new Toy Story then, okay.
if the ants try to walk on them, well, they're gonna get stuck, of course. So if the ants want to get to the strawberries that I put at the end of the obstacle, they're gonna have to use one of the 3 tools I provided for them to figure out how they can maybe cross this lava. Or maybe they'll make a crazy bridge out of their bodies to cross it. Who knows? Anyways, I wanted to make sure most of these guys actually participated, so I spent the past few hours individually picking up each of the ants from the ant nest and transporting them into this container. Or at least as many as I can get. The rest are kind of under there. That way, they could be easily transported. But before pouring these guys in, I just want to tell you guys that the Terra Green merch is actually, really awesome. I know I always say it, but seriously, we got some pretty cool animal plushies. Anyways, I just want to remind you, if you want to get this stuff before Christmas or before the end of the year, make sure to buy ASAP so we can make sure we ship it to you just in time for that. So anyways, seriously guys, thanks for the support so much, and let's get back into doing this crazy final obstacle. Anyways, I wasted no time, and I just dumped the ants straight in. If you can't tell, I actually changed the design of the obstacle a little bit, because if you remember that red tape, well, I actually replaced it with an even stickier and thicker kind of tape to make sure these ants wouldn't be able to just walk across. Anyways, let's see how they do. As you can probably guess, lots of the ants immediately went up to the tape and partially got stuck in the front. So don't worry guys, I'll be watching the ants throughout this obstacle, and any of the ants that looks like they get super stuck in the middle, I'll be picking up with these tweezers and moving back to the start so they don't get stuck in here permanently and hurt. Anyways, to actually cross this tape, like I said earlier, I gave these ants different tools, like a pile of dirt, some pieces of string, and even some wood chips to see if they'd be smart enough to actually use these things to their advantage to cross the piece of tape. And while it may look like the ants are not using the tools here, if you look very closely down here near the dirt, they've actually already started to push this pile of dirt onto the tape to make a little bridge that they could walk onto. If they keep building up this bridge, they would actually be able to cross this with no problem whatsoever. But right when I was filming this, I actually noticed that an ant had actually been walking across the tape and somehow had made it extremely close to the end. Yeah, I have no clue how this ant just managed to ignore the stickiness of this tape. I guess his legs were just extremely strong or something, because he got all the way to the end where he had a bit of trouble pulling himself off the tape, but eventually he was able to do it, and wow. Well, this ant just technically passed the obstacle. Oh my gosh, bro. I didn't even see this ant, but, I mean, he just passed the obstacle. I guess that's fair and square. Good job, bro. Why is it the past 3 obstacles, it's been a single ant that's clutched it up for the entire colony? But anyways, I gotta get all these guys off the tape so they aren't hurt at all. So yeah, I got them all picked up into a container and transported them back to their nest safely. Alright, because you guys beat it, I'm gonna give you this piece of the strawberry. And because the ants beat all of the obstacles I gave them, I'm gonna be giving them this brand new ant nest. Basically, it's just a bit more compact and it has a cool outworld on the top. And I think it's just a bit more optimal for them. So I'm gonna go and move them in there. Anyways, hopefully you guys were entertained and learned something new about ants in this video. Remember guys, the Terra Green merch, you gotta get it.
Shut up. Shout out to Terra Green.
Here's to the pros. The groundbreaking.
Ants are known for their insane ability to work together to accomplish impossible tasks. So I was wondering what would happen if I put my 1,000 ant colony up against natural disasters. Would they actually be able to stop and survive them by working together? Well, that's exactly why I gathered up 1,000 ants. And I have the 5 coolest natural disasters planned, starting with the most iconic. Earthquake.
Okay.
Ants, I went out and bought a realistic earthquake simulating platform that if I go and press this button or whatever on top starts to shake so much, which recreates a real earthquake. Oh, dang. But what I'll actually be putting on here is this 2D ant nest and filling it up with the 1,000 ants, of course. Basically, these ants will dig out tunnels along the glass like my last ant video, but throughout that process, the earthquake machine will lightly go off to gently collapse the tunnels while the ants are digging. That way, I can show you how ants evolve to survive earthquakes in the wild, and if they pass, they move on to the more and more interesting disasters.
Zombie
now,
ants.
As you can probably imagine, the ants wasted no time to get to work. Ants are so
Level 5 is zombie ants.
tiny. And while a
That is wild.
single ant would basically be able to make no progress whatsoever, when you have 1,000 ants, things are done at an insanely rapid pace, as workers started picking up grains of sand along the glass, so each tunnel could be formed. It's so cool to see time-lapse footage of these tunnels being made, because they literally dug out this entire amount of sand in only like 6 hours. So I'm wondering what's going to happen to these tunnels when I turn on this earthquake machine. Now, I started by turning it on the least powerful setting. Okay, it's shaking super slowly. Now, it's my goal to make sure not a single ant is harmed in this video. I just want to show you how insanely smart they are and how they will overcome all these disasters in the wild. But even this very light shaking was definitely felt amongst the colony. The workers along the top area immediately knew something was off, and they started frantically running around, as you can see. And when we take a look down under the nest where all the tunnels are, you can see those ants were acting similarly. Ants know during earthquakes, their tunnels have the chance to collapse, so all of them were being extremely careful. Very interestingly enough, in this room here, many of the ants were gathering up on the walls of the room to add an extra layer of support so it wouldn't collapse. But of course, when an earthquake happens in the wild, a part of the nest is bound to collapse, so it wasn't long until this happened. A bit of the sand here started to fall, completely blocking off this tunnel. I immediately turned off the machine to make sure the ants wouldn't be too stressed out while they had to commence a rescue mission. Because as you can see, while most of the ants were able to squeeze out like this guy here, at least one ant was partially trapped in this collapsed tunnel. But amazingly, it looked as though one of the ants was already picking up some of the sand from the collapsed portion to clear it out. And yeah, literally
That's
so
wild.
quickly, the ants excavated the entire collapsed tunnel enough to where it was a perfectly functional area to walk through again. And funnily enough, some of the ants even started to walk in and slowly dig out the area where the sand had just collapsed from to make a new tunnel there. Wow, the ants just completed this natural disaster. They are so smart. But the natural disasters are designed to get more interesting as the video goes on. So next up, we got a sandstorm. Yes, ants, you heard that right, and this will be taking place in the separate desert enclosure. Yes, we need to have a separate tank, so that way I can make this sand blow around like crazy to replicate a real sandstorm. And along with this blow dryer, I've also got all these fans that clamp to the walls, and I can just set up to constantly blow the ants back. For the ants to be able to pass this disaster, they're gonna have to do something like grab onto each other's bodies or something to be able to push past this intense wind. And if they can make it to this canyon, climb up it, and make it to the Terra Green leaf bowl, then they're gonna get a ton of seeds, which is their favorite food. Alright, let me just hook up this tubing like so, and the ants should start coming. Let's go. Yup, and this tubing is set up so once an ant enters the disaster, they can't get out. That way, we'll progressively get to see more and more teamwork as time goes on. Now, immediately, you could see these first ants just kind of thought this was a normal desert as they were walking through it, but quickly, I brought out my mini sandstorm fan, and I started to blow. Immediately, the ants started to feel the wind pressure pushing them back, and were suddenly not able to walk forward. Some even lost their grip and got pushed back a bit. And as more ants entered the desert, you could tell the sandstorm was keeping them all stuck to the left side of this enclosure. Yo, this little mini fan is fire for replicating a sandstorm. But no, this is where it gets interesting, because now that they know a sandstorm is brewing, how are they going to figure out how to get to these seeds? Well, let's see. While most ants kept trying to just walk forward and getting blown back, interestingly enough, many of the ants were gathering up in this back area here near the sticks. And many of them were actually starting to climb onto the sticks. You see, the fan doesn't really blow ants back if they're walking on sticks, since there's just so much of a better grip on there. But yeah, the second they climb off and stand on the sand again, they'll get blown back, as you can see. But the ants were starting to learn that they needed to stay on the sticks. So many started to gather up and march towards the right side where all the seeds were located. In fact, this ant was making it dangerously close to the seeds using the stick method. And well, he was able to make it to the little rock canyon and almost was there to the seeds. Oh my gosh, this ant climbing right now is a beast. I am blowing this fan max speed on him, and he is just stuck to this rock. And as I let my guard down for literally 1 second, this dude made a dash for the seeds, literally running straight towards it, and well, he made it in. And he looked so happy to have gotten those seeds. He was just dancing around in there. Yo, this ant is crazy. I didn't even have time to blow him back when he got up into this area. Since the ants passed a disaster, I gathered them all up and put them back into the nest. And I gave them the food prize, which of course they started to take down into the nest over the next 5 minutes. But ants, I'm not gonna lie, this natural disaster was kind of easy to pass. If we really want to learn about how ants survive, well, we gotta go to our third natural disaster, a flood. Yup, and as you can see, I built another custom tank where the flood is going to be getting simulated. I know there's no water yet, but you'll see how quickly that changes. For now, all you gotta know is if the ants make it all the way to this leaf ball, they'll once again get rewarded with tons more seeds. These ants have no idea what's about to hit them. Let's connect this tubing. So,
this is an urgent warning. If you have investments in the stock market, listen up. The SEC plans to eliminate...
No idea what's about to hit them. Let's connect this tubing so these guys can start walking in. Quickly, the ants started to make their way in. But before the ants had any time at all to take in their surroundings, I had to activate the flood. So to make the flood happen, I gotta go down here to this little bucket, plug it in, and then out the end of this tube. Oh yeah, water. Oh shoot, water's coming out. Okay, I just gotta carefully. Oh, move that over there. Oh, okay. There we go. Similar to real life, floods will block off paths for ants while they're trying to travel, so this is exactly what that recreates. And the ants are gonna have to find a way to pass these gaps using the objects I've provided for them. As you can tell, the ants in here immediately were a little confused on what to do. Many were gathering up near the water edge, inspecting what the heck just happened. Some even fell into the water, but don't worry, any ant that falls in, I'll be rescuing and bringing back to the start so no ants get hurt. But also, many of the ants were actually sort of gathering around the objects I had placed in. And as I left my camera camera recording, I was extremely amazed by what I saw happen. Out of nowhere, this feather started to slightly move, and as I kept watching, it slowly started nudging around more and more. There must have been an ant underneath, and this ant was genuinely moving the feather closer and closer to the water until literally like magic, it was moved almost entirely in, and an ant crawled out right from underneath as soon as that happened. Dang, this guy must have been helping move it. Yo, these ants are absolutely insane. I don't know what ant just moved this feather into the water, but dang, I mean, let's just see what they do. It took a couple minutes, but eventually a couple more of the workers started to step onto the feather and started to walk across it to, of course, make it to our second platform. Now, unfortunately, the ants got to do the same exact thing here. Sorry, guys, I know you already did it once. But to my surprise, the ants literally wasted no time to start gathering around these feathers and directly in the area under them. And while it took a couple hours, eventually my camera caught this same exact thing happening. The feather slowly inched towards the water until, well, it had made a bridge across almost. Let's go, ants. Now, I did help them a little bit by just moving the feather up onto this platform, but for the most part, they actually were moving those. And yep, it didn't take long until our first worker stepped onto the final platform and climbed up into the leaf dish to claim their seeds. Alright, well done, little ant, and here is your guys' reward. Well, guys, if you want even better food, you're gonna have to complete this next natural disaster, which is a blizzard. And guys, this is gonna be happening.
That's wild.
Be prepared. Yup, this blizzard will be taking place inside of the ant nest, so we can study how ants handle the cold in the wild. Now, obviously, I can't just go and dump a ton of snow on them. That would totally just freeze them all. Instead, I've actually got some ice cubes, which I'm gonna go and just plop on this. Which, as you can see, this makes a nice little makeshift snow that on my laser thermometer is approximately -Celsius degrees. I started by sprinkling a super tiny amount of this ice on the ant nest to see how they'd initially react, and interestingly, well, not even a single ant cared at all. Yeah, this ice just melted completely into the sand. Since the ants weren't affected by that, I decided to up the amount of ice I put in, which should give us a reaction to how ants handle the cold in the wild. And this time, the ants were actually a bit more interested in the ice, with some of them even crawling on top of them. But the most fascinating thing I had noticed was how much the ants had started to slow down their movement since the start. Thankfully, all the ants are doing just fine still, but if you look very closely, these ants, for the most part, have slowed down so much. I mean, look at how slowly some of them are moving. Yup, this is one of ants' special abilities, because in the winter, when it starts to snow and the temperature drops drastically, the ants are basically biologically built to start moving slower. That way, they can conserve as much energy as possible and go hide deeper underground. Yeah, in the wild, they would dig even deeper, and all the ants would relocate to under the nest. I don't want to put any ants at risk, so I'm going to very carefully take out all the pieces of ice so this place will warm back up to the proper temperature. And once the tank was warmed back up, I'd say the ants are now ready for their final natural disaster, which this time is a zombie apocalypse. And I'm not going to lie, this is probably going to be the most interesting to watch, because I've got 3 different types of insects that, in a way, is going to represent a zombie apocalypse. Now, our first insect prey is, well, zombie grasshoppers. Yes, these are grasshoppers that Petco sells that are literally like half decomposing and meant for feeding animals. And I'll be bringing them back to life and moving it in front of the ants to see what they do. And to make the ants swarm this even more, I'm going to dip some of it in this brown sugar water. And yeah, this is going to make it super tasty. Without further ado, let's get this in here. Now, immediately after dipping this in the nest, I started to do a really good, accurate job of moving this around to act like it was alive. And I think the ants were falling for it, because you can see they quickly started to climb all over it. If you also look closely, the ants were actually grabbing onto this thing with their insanely strong mandibles, and they were injecting their venomous stingers into it. Which is kind of unnecessary. This thing is already long gone, but I guess I'm just doing such a good job moving it around that they think it's actually a real zombie grasshopper. Okay, you guys are doing a good job attacking this. I'm just gonna leave that in there for you while I get this second insect ready. And yeah, they start to absolutely devour this grasshopper. But anyways, our second insect food is this. They're called
Walmart's back to school must-haves.
They're called Walmart.
Can be as big
it's called Walmart.
Walmart? You know it.
insect food is this. They're called wax worms, and they're a staple food for ants because
I
of how
thought they were dead.
squishy they are. But yeah, they just look so weird. So that's why I'm putting them in. Second insect food is this. They're called wax worms, and they're a staple food for ants because of how squishy they are. But yeah, they just look so weird. So that's why I'm putting them in the zombie apocalypse section of the video. Let's go ahead and add these guys in. I decided to put this first wax worm on top of where all the ants were still located around that grasshopper. And well, the ants almost instantly recognized the prey, and amazingly, they knew exactly what to do. And they took this dude straight down into the tunnel system where it wouldn't even stand a chance to fight back. Oh my gosh, that was like 3 seconds. And now this worm is literally nowhere to be seen. It's probably in the tunnel system. Dang, that's actually kind of impressive, ants. So I dropped the other 2 wax worms inside, and once again, one of them instantly got pulled down into the tunnel system to get eaten, and this one started to get swarmed. After the ants had a good grasp of it, they literally brought it over to these hills in the back, which eventually the worm was then brought down one of the holes on that hill. It's so cool, because if you guys didn't even realize, the ants have turned these hills at the back into an extra place for more tunnels on the back, and we can literally see the worm down under these tunnels as the ants get their protein from eating it. Wow, amazing job, ants. But our final zombie apocalypse food is flightless fruit flies. But I'm gonna be dumping so many on the ants, so it's like a proper zombie apocalypse movie with how many zombies there are, even though you see these are zombies. Yeah, these are flightless fruit flies. If you didn't already know what they are, well, they're flies that can't fly. It's always so funny to me to say this in videos, because seriously, like, how are you a fly that can't fly? Come on, bro. Okay, anyways, I got about 100 of these flies, as you can see. So let's dump this zombie apocalypse on these ants. Oh yeah. Now, as you can probably imagine, dumping this much prey on the ants activates their predator instincts a lot. Because instantly, so many of the ants started to become way more frantic. They started to run around like crazy to try and catch these little flies. Now, I mean, it's pretty obvious the ants aren't going to struggle with eating these flies because they're literally so much smaller. And quickly, I started to notice lots of the ants with these little flies in their mandibles. Yeah, I bet these are tasty. Well, ants, you've literally survived floods, earthquakes, and so much more. So I'm going to move these guys back to their proper nest where it has all the right stuff. But quickly, I have amazing news.
All right, guys, you ready to play the game?
But quickly, I have amazing news for those of you who love the channel. The Terra Green plushies are back in stock, baby. Yeah, we released these a few months ago, but they literally sold out within the first month. So many of you guys weren't able to get.
That's cool. But anyways, hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe to Terra Green. Shout out to Terra Green, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, that being said, stay happy, healthy, stay beautiful, stay most important to yourself. See you on the video. Love ya. And peace.